I just had the worst TFT streak in my life. I lost 500 LP in 24 hours for the first time, and instead of being emo about it, let's learn from this. So hopefully you do not commit the same 3 deadly sins as I did during this streak. What I'm about to tell you will save you LP no matter what set it is, what patch it is, or what type of meta the game is in. One odd thing about this whole experience is that my sleep schedule has been completely awful recently, but that is not the reason why I lost so much TFT. This is not like a mental or physical health video. In fact, when I made a video talking about how I climbed 300 LP, I was playing games at 4 AM and was deathly sick at the time too. So what happened here? The first deadly sin of TFT climbing that I committed when I lost 500 LP was playing just to play, which is what I did. We all know those people who say, hey, you are only higher ranked than me in TFT because you have more games played. I even say myself that you probably need to play at least 50 to 100 games each set to reach your like natural or actual rating. And a lot of people don't have
time for anything, and I'm like so stressed out.
So that's why people come up with that like insult or excuse on why someone else is higher ranked than them. Also, if you haven't heard of the 10,000 hour rule, which asserts that the key to achieving true expertise in any skill is simply a matter of practicing it for at least 10,000 hours, we'll know that time spent in any activity should make you better. However, we all know people who play or work at something for years and years and never get any better. Think of the guy who has 1,000 games every season since League of Legends came out and never passed Gold 3. Their account level 2,000 at this point. This spans beyond gaming though. Think of Susan in HR who hasn't gotten a promotion in 30 years. They spend so much time on something, why are they not a master of their craft? Well, one key element that people forget and often use to discredit this rule is that you need 10,000 quality hours, not just plain hours. That brings us to our next point, which is what is quality time spent on TFT? Well, if we learned anything from the 2 examples before, it's for sure not spamming games, which is exactly what I did. If we want to climb, we need to actively play instead. And if you watch my how to get to challenger videos from a few sets ago, you'd know that watching high-level players is the best way to improve. If you actually absorbed information from that video because you're watching actively, you'd also know that watching VODs is better than watching streams due to the play, pause, and fast forward mechanic that allows you to analyze key decision points or watch twice the amount of games in the same amount of time as a live stream. You should also know that watching your own games and being highly critical of yourself is another way to improve. Then, when you actually do play TFT, you focus completely on the game. No Netflix on the second monitor, hopefully you had a good night of sleep before, and you also didn't eat 30 minutes before going swimming. However, I decided to fix my bad sleep schedule by waking up and playing TFT all day until I had a normie bedtime, and that is not a good climbing environment. Off topic, but I will say that losing 500 LP to fix my sleep schedule was actually completely worth it. I literally went from living in my divorced stepmom's basement sleep schedule to the take an ice bath in Scandinavia and then fly to my office in San Francisco sleep schedule through this play session. The second deadly sin I committed is autopiloting. There's a TFT streamer out there who plays for 40 plus hours each time. And do you really think on the 42nd hour of TFT, human beings are at their peak performance? No offense, but I don't believe any human being can do that. Personally, for me, the only way I can play a lot of games is when I just autopilot and purposely play lines that require less thinking. That way, I don't get too tired and can play for hours and hours. If you compare that to when I play with no distractions and fully think about every action on my turns, I play much better TFT, but I could only play for maybe 4 games straight. So instead, since I had to play a lot of games, I just autopiloted. I force a comp on stage 2-1, and I hard force it no matter what based on my augments and items. I go on bunnymuffins.lol, I type in whatever comp I want to play, throw that into my team planner, and pretty much just AFK play after that. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with this playstyle. In fact, I actually encourage this, especially for newer players, but there's a difference between hard forcing 100% and hard forcing, let's say, 90%. Hard forcing 100%, you can literally turn off your brain because you just follow the team planner, don't scout, and go for your comp and only your comp, no matter what. It's an easy way to play, and again, it's effective for many players, but it's for sure not optimal. Another way to hard force your comp is to take something like Wandering Trainer or Hard Commit, where you let Mortdog decide what comp you'll go for in the next 30 minutes. Actually, in my case, it was actually just the next 20 minutes since I went 8th a lot that day, and pretty much you have no deviations from the plans you made in the very beginning. Compare that to hard forcing like 90 or 80% or even 70% of the time, where maybe 3 out of 10 games, 2 out of 10 games, you flex into something else because you got something crazy in the mid game. But since the meta was fast 8, I literally just fast 8 almost every game no matter what, which again is fine to do depending on the meta. However, Instead of fast 8, I went fast 8th. I pretty much did not deviate from a made up flowchart I had in my mind, and I just saved gold, waited until level 8, and then rolled. I was not paying attention to my win streak, I was not paying attention to my loss streaks early on, and a lot of games I just bled out early because I refused to stabilize my board earlier on in stage 3. Autopiloting or blindly following a flowchart is very dangerous play because sometimes you get away with it, and then it makes you think you could keep doing it over and over without getting punished. It's kind of like drunk driving. You get home, you're alive, you go to bed, and then you wake up the next day as if nothing happened. Next weekend, you drink again, and you're like, oh, it worked last time. Nothing wrong with this, right? Then one day you're wearing a black suit, looking at your 23-year-old cousin, hearing people say she died too early. Don't do it. The third deadly sin of TFT climbing is playing for fun. You might be confused by this terminology, but let me cook for a sec. If you want to climb, you are not allowed to have fun because you absolutely need to avoid going 8th like the plague. I know that someone has to go 8th in every single game, and a few years ago I made the point of if the best player in TFT played against 7 identical copies of himself, someone would have to go 8th. However, that logic does not apply when you are trying to climb. The reason why is because if you are trying to climb, it assumes you are better than the other players in your game. Why else should you be a higher rating, right, if you're not better than them? So if you are better than them, there's no excuse ever to go 8th. Now, back to the topic of fun. What is having fun? Having fun in TFT for me is essentially playing stupid comps or hoping that you hit the perfect augments, items, and champions just because Mortdog blessed you that game. I'm guilty of this, you're guilty of this, everyone's guilty of this. You see a fun hero augment that's averaging a 4.9 after checking on teamfight.lol, but you really want to make that comp work, so you take it. Don't do that. You want to try to force Warwick reroll hoping you get corrupted Vampiric Scepter in a future augment round? Again, don't do that. You want to build 3 Rabadon's death caps on someone just because it looks funny? That's essentially a recipe to go 8th. Let me explain for a moment why 8ths are very bad, other than the obvious reasons, because I don't think people actually have in perspective how bad they are. Let's say we average a 4th every game when we're climbing, which is very, very good, right? Every game you gain 10 LP for a 4th. It's above average, 4.5 is the average. A game of TFT takes 35 minutes, but let's round it up to 40 minutes because of load screens, sometimes you're waiting for Q to pop, and other random stuff that happens in life. This means you gain around 15 LP an hour. If you get an 8th, you lose around 40 to 50 LP, which means that it'll take you 3 hours of getting 4th place to break even with your 8th. Not to mention you wasted 20 to 25 minutes taking that 8th. I got 9 8ths that day. It's gonna take me 27 hours to get that LP back if I go 4th every single game from those 8ths alone. This means that every 7th is around 2.25 hours, every 6th is 1.25 hours, and every 5th is 40 minutes. Of course, it works in the opposite way too. Every first you get gains you 3 hours, so each placement is crucial. You know those games where you forget to position and you get 3rd instead of 2nd because of it? Well, that mistake alone cost you 10 to 15 LP, which means that you lost 40 minutes to an hour of your life just because of that one mistake. I'm getting a bit off topic, but essentially you just can't try to have fun for the sake of having fun in TFT if you're trying to climb, because you will go 8th more often than not, and that will cost you way too much time. I used to laugh at people who giga climbed or giga fell, and I had no clue how people could just not stop playing after, let's say, 2 8ths in a row or something like that. But I got a taste of it last patch where I climbed too much in a short amount of time and then fell too much in too short a time as well. I'm normally the player that goes up and down maybe 100 LP at most in a given day, and I actually had a friend who would go up and down, I shit you not, like 400 to 800 LP every single day. He'd either be challenger, sometimes even like rank 10 or something, or he would be masters 50 LP the next day. I don't know how that happens, especially to that extent, but hopefully you learned as much from this experience as I have without actually having to experience it, but at least my sleep schedule's fixed. So do let me know what you think about this video. What are some other deadly TFT sins that you can think of? And I hope to see you